be of benefit to all sentient beings. We help others achieve their highest goal, then our own benefit is achieved as well. So just reflecting on our own good fortune, all aspects of our own life, and recognizing our potential, and also seeing that all other beings have that same potential. Since we've been related to all other beings throughout our infinite past lifetimes, and even in this lifetime, we're completely dependent upon the kindness of others. Every happiness we have in this life comes from others. And so just reflecting on all of that and wanting to repay the kindness of others, just using this time to practice Dharma together, aspire towards our own highest wisdom and compassion, so that we can be fully capable of helping others. Just settling into your posture, feeling your feet on the floor or on the chair, letting go of distractions of yesterday and tomorrow and today. Just being present in your body and mind in the present moment. Using your breath as the anchor to your awareness. Whenever you get lost, just come back to your breath. Allowing your breath to be completely natural. Breathe according to some special system, tradition. Just let the body breathe by itself. It knows how to, and all we have to do is just observe what that feels like. How it changes from moment to moment. Sensations are never the same, constantly changing. Same with the mind. Sometimes we lose the breath gets really subtle. Start to reflect on the deeper nature of our body and mind. Maybe we get lost in a daydreaming. That's also impermanent. Lacks any solid inherent substance. Completely dependent arising. It's there's like different levels of drowsiness, like sloth and torpor, I guess, is the hindrance. Full blown sloth and torpor is kind of like this, but it's like for a while the meditation felt pretty clear, but then I was like noticing, oh, I'm losing that focus and just sort of drifting and subtle dullness. I'm not sure if that's the term. It's like you think you're kind of in the meditation, but you keep drifting off. Um, but yeah, I mainly for my meditation, I mainly I've done a lot of vipassana retreats, and the four foundations of mindfulness is really kind of the basic framework for that um, vipassana practice. Um, Vipassana, uh, it's the insight meditation. Um, uh, Four foundations of mindfulness, which is the class is going into for the next 4 months. We'll be doing mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind, which is kind of like what the flavor of your mind is, what emotions and so forth are present, and whether it's clear or dull, and then the fourth mindfulness is mindfulness of phenomena or mindfulness of mind objects. Um, so mostly the first three are kind of focused on internal, and the fourth is on external. Um, yeah, yes, yeah. And Venerable Children is also going to give a talk in October on the difference between secular mindfulness and Buddhist mindfulness. Um, so yeah, in the meditation, um, I think it's kind of like well, I'll just show my book list for now. Let's see. Can you see that? Oh, it even shows up. So this book here, The Heart of Buddhist Meditation, um, is a really wonderful book on Satipatthana Sutra, which is basically goes into the four foundations of mindfulness. Um, and then this book here has, I think it's on page 116. There's a section for about 12 pages or so. Yeah, on the four establishments of mindfulness. And this is another book, Satipatthana, The Direct Path to Realization by Venerable Analayo. It's quite scholarly. And, listening to Yangtze Rinpoche's talk last week, and also some discussions I've had with a few other nuns through email, there's kind of two different ways to approach the four foundations of mindfulness. One is like kind of a broad, systematic framework, just to understand our mind and how it's programmed. And I mean, they're not really, in my mind, they're not really separate. Like, so the four foundations of mindfulness has all these different levels of teaching what you can be mindful on, and as Yangtze Rinpoche said last week, they're the four foundations of mindfulness are really closely associated with the Four Noble Truths, because the purpose of of meditating on the four foundations is to um, understand uh, impermanence, suffering, and emptiness. Those are really um, integral to the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is suffering and um, impermanence and emptiness. I mean, impermanence kind of leads you to understand emptiness. It's like um, you start to recognize the impermanence of things. It's just a few more steps, really, in your mind to get to emptiness. Um, and and then the fourth noble truth actually is the Eightfold Path, and right mindfulness is one of the one of the you know aspects of the Eightfold Noble Path. Um, yeah, I mean, another way to think about it is when we go through our day, we can cultivate mindfulness of anything really, I mean, mindfulness of, but mostly we want to be mindful of our body, our feelings, our mind, and how that those are stimulating and interacting with our karmic patterns. um, I'll just give an example from this morning, and um, so I'm at the bank machine depositing checks and cash from yesterday's um, my business, and so um, I have a little bit of a pet peeve when people give me cash, because then I have to go to the cash machine, to deal with it. Or figure out some other way to deal with it. And there's all these sort of accounting layers. But anyways, so they give me cash. Not only did they give me cash, but it was crumpled up bills that are hard to feed into the cash machine. So, I try my best to kind of smooth out the cash, and I stick it into the cash machine, and I put my little metal container of all my Visa cards and debit cards on the little shelf of the cash machine. And so in one instant, though, the cash machine spits out all of the bills, and even more crumpled up than they were before, because the machine itself, like, you know, just sort of the way it works. And the exact moment it rejected all my money, the way the cash machine is designed, is the shelf isn't quite level. It sort of tilts a little bit outward, I guess, maybe to deflect rainwater. And so my container of cards slipped off and went onto the pavement, and spilled my cards everywhere. And it's a frustrating moment there, and so I felt this frustration, and like, why didn't they design this cash machine better? And it was just and in that moment I was like, oh, okay, this is frustration, irritation, maybe even anger, and I just observed it, and like then 10 seconds or so, it's like, oh, okay, you got upset, you're not an arhat yet, or whatever. Let it go, let it go, let it go, and just come back to the present moment, and just start over, and so that's just kind of like an example of mindfulness in daily life, versus kind of like mindfulness on the cushion. I mean, it's really kind of the same in a way. It's just more focused. You're sitting there and you're trying to be mindful of your breathing. And um, and this book here goes into a lot of detail of what mindfulness actually is, that I found quite uh, clear. So there are these two aspects of mindfulness. One is called bare attention, and the other is clear comprehension. Um, and um, so mindfulness is like seeing things, recognizing them, but right mindfulness, Buddhist mindfulness, of course, is based on ethics, ethical discipline, and for practicing Mahayana Buddhism, um, you know, uh, it's mixed with bodhicitta too, which this is mainly kind of a Theravada text, um, but this is really. So when I say it's a Theravada text, it doesn't mean it's not relevant to Mahayana practitioner. This is like the foundation of our practice. Anyway, so mindfulness of breathing. Initially, we just kind of bring our focus to the breathing and feel the rise and fall of the breath. But as our mindfulness grows, there's like an intensity of clarity that builds in the mind, where we start to see it with much more sharp clarity and precision, um, and I mean, in my experience, that's kind of the beginning of vipassana meditation or insight meditation. Um, Vipassana in Tibetan is laptong, insight meditation. Um, but also, Rinpoche talks about shine meditation, which is calm abiding, or shamatha is the Sanskrit term for concentration, essentially. Um, they both go together. We're meditating just on the breath, and initially it's just kind of like this crude, gross level of attention to the mindfulness. And there's distraction. We're kind of getting pulled away, but as 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 we continue and keep bringing our attention back patiently to the breath, um, over time, we start to have this clarity, um, and then we um, can start to get kind of a direct insight into the three natures of existence, impermanence and dissatisfactoriness or suffering, um, and emptiness. I mean, especially, I guess it's easy to see the impermanence of the breath. It's rising and falling, and sometimes it's there's um, no place where the breath is is the same. Um, Sometimes during meditation, the breath can get really, really subtle, and but it still doesn't stop. It just gets subtle, and um, that at that point, uh, I think it's good to shift your awareness from the breath to kind of more whatever understanding of other teachings you've had on you know like starting to look into the nature of the mind, basically. There's still this really clear awareness, but the breath is so subtle, and so there's this mind looking at the breath, but the breath has been this wave, and then it's starting to get calm, like the surface of a lake, and you're still observing this breath, but the breath almost seems like it's gone, and then you might have this question in your meditation: okay, what do I do now? you know and that in itself is a thought bubble, like coming up and creating a big ripple on the surface of this clear awareness, and then you can just investigate that thought, and um, keep looking into the nature of reality. I mean, there's I could I mean whatever words I say are no substitute for your own exploration of this topic, and that's what Nyanaponika Thera says this a lot in the book. It's like basically he can talk about the practice for a long time, and even Buddha can talk about the practice, but the real practice is direct observation, and so um, talks about three stages of mindfulness. The first stage being when consciousness breaks through the dark stream of subconscious. This function of germinal, sort of, just like a sprout, germinal mindfulness or initial attention is still a rather primitive process, but it is of decisive importance, being the first emergence of consciousness from its unconscious subsoil. We bring closer attention to the object, and it comes to the second stage, which is uh, associative thinking, abstract thinking. So in the second stage, there's four characteristics: an increase in detail, reference to the observer or subjectivity, associative and abstract thinking. Um, so I kind of see it as, it's starting to um, filter things through our own karmic filters a little bit. Um, but this, and so consequently, in the second stage, he talks about, there's still a lot of wrong associations that are based on ignorance that are happening, especially the self-referencing. We see things in reference to ourself. Like a classic example of this is like you're meditating on the breath, and the mind wanders, and you bring it back, and you might have some kind of thought, oh, my meditation is no good. you know it's like a diluted thought. It's like it's an interpretation that we're putting on top of reality, that's based on this wrong conception of a solid I that that we're so familiar with. And but that's okay. We still do it sometimes, and we just try to notice, okay, that there's that I self habit coming up again. um, and so you note that as um, a mental phenomenon in your meditation. Oh, there's that little energy in my meditation that's the fundamental ignorance. um, and then the third stage, um, what is the third stage? I have it. I have number 3 here written when I used to write in books, but um, it's like a whole page. um, High level of mental clarity. Um, I think really certainly in my level, the basis of mindfulness is being able to see things without constantly commenting on them in my mind, and putting all these labels on. Um, you know, I mean, sometimes the labeling is good, because we have to recognize and identify the obstacles, and be clear about that, but the art of the meditation is being able to label lightly, very lightly, like it's not just like hammering down the label during our meditation, saying, oh, there's attachment, there is, you know, distraction, and, you know, this hindrance and that hindrance, just noticing very lightly, and then continuing with the meditation just to observe phenomena. I was, Rinpoche also um, talked on Sunday about, you know, going on retreat, and we have all these sadhanas, and we use the sadhana as a distraction, and the real problem is behind the sadhana. um, and we do a retreat for whatever length of time, and we come out of the retreat, and um, but we haven't really touched on the the fundamental problems in our mind, because we've just been reciting this sadhana, which, he later said, well, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say sadhanas are bad, but uh, I mean, in the past in Tibet, Tantra was secret, and these sadhanas basically presumed a very high level of mental development already, that they were only taught to a few select disciples. And so um, uh, when I read a sadhana, I kind of uh, yeah, just what's my point here? I mean, I think the main practice at our level is getting to know our own minds, and um, and that forms the basis. I mean, tantra is based on having good ethics, and in order to have good ethics, you have to have good mindfulness, because unless you're mindful, you're creating ethical transgressions all the time. You're especially mental ones, which are, I mean, it's none of us here have a problem with killing, I think, um, it's easy to avoid killing. Um, Stealing can be a little trickier on some levels, just making sure that you only take what has been offered to you, and um, just for an example, like when I was growing up, I wouldn't think anything about picking up money off the street, but if it's not offered to you, it's could be a little karmic negativity. Maybe it belonged to somebody else, maybe the owner's nearby, and um, um, any. I'm just kind of babbling, and I don't know if this is helpful, but anybody want to share? Some
question.
Yeah, question.
So satna translation in English is like avoid attachment. It's called satna.
Oh, sadhana is, like a tantric practice where you read through a set of prayers, and and then at one point you meditate on emptiness, and then you arise as the deity, and um, so it's basically tantric practice, sadhana, but it's quite elaborate. There's lots of practices, and you make offerings, and ring the bell, and you got your dorje, and you know and and you have to set up the altar in a certain way, and dietary restrictions, and so it's like an opera performance in some ways, and so um, and it's Mahayana practitioners. I mean, the tantric path is the quick way to enlightenment, and extremely precious, that we live in a time where this is being taught, because lots of times there's um, the Buddhas will come and they don't teach tantra, and this particular era, Shakyamuni Buddha, the fourth of 1,000 Buddhas, I guess. He taught tantra, and so it's incredibly powerful, um, but uh, it's important to be a tantric practitioner, be qualified before you practice, and so I try to think of it as, okay, if I practice this tantric sadhana, I'm putting some good seeds on my mind, um, but uh, you know, without a realization of emptiness, it's you have to be careful. I'm just noticing a little bubble in the chat. It's good. Thank you. Okay. Oh, I can send you a little emoji back. Um, okay. And That's a good question. And any other questions or thoughts anybody else want to share? I mean, I don't presume I'm just sort of talking here, but why am I talking?
So is that the first step is focus on first the breathing and then single pointed focus like a bigger something and you clarity on that image before you go to the um, like deeper thinking about emptiness or anything. It's just the single point. It's meditation first.
I know your question, is like what's the progress? I mean, of course, they
Yeah.
always in the Lamrim they teach concentration. The perfection of concentration is comes before the perfection of wisdom. So, they that's the traditional method is you need to develop single pointed meditation before meditation on emptiness. Um, uh, in my own experience, I don't get I don't really try to separate them. I mean, I think you can work on both at the same time. Um, first, just within one single meditation session, um, use the breath as a meditation object or the Buddha, an image of the Buddha, um, to focus your mind and develop some concentration, and then start to investigate the nature of the object. Is it um, using analysis, and that's where whatever teachings you've had on emptiness um, can you can start to ask some of these questions. Use the king of reasonings, the dependent arising is my favorite. What are the causes of the meditation? uh Sorry, I have to plug in my computer or it's gonna go. Yeah. um what are the causes of the breath, for example, and um, and what are the parts of the breath? There's the in breath and the out breath, and 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 the fact that breath is merely labeled. It's just like uh, we have this idea of breath, but breath is just a word. It's a concept, and where's the real breath? Like, when you take away the concept, what's left? There's there's uh, there's nothing that you can find, and so if that hits you really powerfully, it's like, oh, then you try to meditate single pointedly on that sort of recognition that comes up in your meditation. If it's not that powerful, maybe do some more analysis. However, if your concentration isn't that good, you know, the more analysis you do, your mind will start getting busy. So, um, um, it may be useful to go back to the breath and just reestablish um, that calming. I mean, when the breath gets really subtle, there's other sort of mental phenomenon that you can experience that are sort of more subtle that you can focus on to to get into kind of a calm meditation that's not distracted. But you can hang out in those places too long, and they can um, end up being distractions. You can think you're in a really relaxed, peaceful, quiet, calm, meditative state, and before you know it, you're daydreaming or you know. So it's like this constant checking of what's going on in the mind. Is the mind clear? Are you on the meditation object, or are you daydreaming? And it's like they talk about it as like having a little spy in one corner of your mind. Like you want this I think it's called introspective alertness is the term.
It's watching the other.
Yeah,
It's almost like.
yeah. I mean, and so I mean, eventually you have to bring it all together into one mind. Because that's the goal. If you've got two minds, there's waves happening. The boat's being rocked, and you're not stable. But so it's just practice and just while I'm on this sort of more general topic of meditation, that to the extent that the rest of our life is full of distractions, it makes it harder. When you go on retreat, the mind naturally gets calm pretty um, pretty easily after a few days of kind of uh, letting go of all the mental debris that you've brought with you into the retreat center, and um, so you know this is the great challenge for me. Is sometimes I think, okay, I do my practice. I'm doing my 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 40 minutes, whatever, in the morning, and then my mind is off to the races the rest of the day. Okay, what am I doing? Oh, I have time in the afternoon. What am I gonna do? And instead of just like being kind of in more of a spontaneous, free flowing um, awareness that's not constantly trying to fill up my time with stuff, just um, keeping the mind more smooth and not so busy, that helps our meditation. So, um,
Yeah, it's like, um, that tree is set up to make that easier for us. Because a lot of distractions
yeah,
and pattern. But, it is possible at home to slow down. And it doesn't mean you don't do these things that you need doing, but you just kind of and slow down and be more mindful about what you're doing.
yeah.
And then that makes it so much richer than when I start zooming around.
I mean, Thich Nhat Hanh, I'm not sure if I pronounce his name. Um, he one of the first books I read of his, uh, he talked about brushing your teeth or doing your dishes, and just really being present with the sensations of those activities and not somewhere else, like, um, we're so good at multitasking, and we can do the dishes with our eyes closed and be balancing our checkbook, or in my case, thinking about 5 patients I've got going simultaneously or something. But it's really precious and valuable to, as much as possible, just to be present with what we're doing in the moment. I mean, maybe we can multitask and be present with all of it. But it's harder,
Yeah,
It's,
you might observe it. It's being, I mean, it doesn't have to be like even continuously. It's like I like this, especially my teeth, that I can pay attention to that. Because I notice that when I'm doing things without mindfulness, I'm not sure if I did brush my teeth, for a minute. So I'm like, yeah.
right. Did you get those teeth in the back that your dentist is always telling you to
Yeah.
make sure you get those and all your surfaces? Why don't we just take 5 to 10 minutes just to take a little stretch, and we'll come back and do something.
Yeah.
Do something mindful. Just being mindful of my body now. I'm realizing, I need to drink some warm fluid. So stay with us.
I know, it's just like, choose that. It's like, yes, sir. And then it like, I don't think he's been done it. And so it's a real routine of eating special food and some activities and so on. And I'm starting to look like that's doing that, and I think, gosh, and I have to put special food or special pills in this food, and I think that, well, I don't know, so I can't, well, I can't just take more in. But yeah, it's because I'm trying to. Yeah,
I think my vitamin, but if I rush and do anything, if I take it again,
yeah,
it's better not wait.
right, yeah, exactly. I'm confident. Sure about this. Say. Okay. Somebody's to tell me that. But yeah, we think we're being productive and getting a lot accomplished, but kind of like not really clear on things, and we're not getting that same benefit of like maybe being presently during the day.
It's good for our mind, not multitask.
Yeah, too. I don't think we actually can. We're trying, but I guess the body still can't.
Easy to get distracted.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, definitely. But yeah, and quite honestly, when I'm up in the morning doing all these things, it's just me, my husband's not up. I don't have to be ready. Why am I doing it that way?
If not home, I'm just like go back to my teenager, I just take me time, and what I think it's going to be. Yeah, don't have to. Because I have to hope. Then you do it.
Oh, I wanted to see really shape last weekend. And, but in the morning, I just realized, oh my God, the food oven free. Well, I have to go here, but Fed needs to see that store, so I'll go there and there. Oh, how will I meet the bus? And pretty soon, I just thought, this is too much stress. This needs to stop.
Yeah.
And so then I thought I'd take an Uber. By that time, I was at my baby. Then I thought, it sounds easy. do that. It's not ideal, but do it.
And also, you don't have to bring anything always. I think.
I imagine so.
See,
Oh, good, thank
so
you.
you don't have to. So you take the bus, it's harder for you.
Oh, yeah.
So please don't bring anything. We're ready for.
Yeah, that's good to know. But yeah, I mean, there's so many ways of. So this idea of mindfulness, like the four foundations in that practice in meditation, but we can practice it. And then part of the four foundations of mindfulness restricted meditation.
Right, yeah.
That bring back awareness to what we're doing. And you know, for me, that virtual church is, it's just precious. Sometimes you really do have to get to the back.
I remember the bouquet. And our. Yeah, I remember it's even for children.
Yeah, that attention.
Yeah, don't try to do too much and don't. You know. Yeah. The potato.
So that's, I understand that. Importance.
So Sherry is saying, when doing everyday things, something that helps me is having a simple personal object that brings you back to center. So to speak, I use an empowerment cord. If I get distracted or wander, I touch the cord and it brings me back to concentration. Yeah, I mean, wearing a mala too, or something, or wrist mala, or having, going for a walk with a mala, can remind you of practice. In tantric practice, we're kind of supposed to remember ourselves as the deity, at all times. That's challenging. But I'll wait till Lana comes back. I find that reading books on emptiness, and I remember Jeffrey Hopkins a lot, when he came to give a teaching, and he would say, when something like, when you're out and you're looking at things and you think they're real, just remind yourself, this is not real. I'm not seeing things correctly. I forget his exact words, but there was something what he said. I mean, I just sort of picture his face, and because he's written so many books on emptiness, and you, sometimes you're talking to somebody, and you look at them and you're not really paying attention to how you're looking at them, and you think, you're sort of in the view of, okay, there's the solid person out there, but then you remember the teachings on emptiness. And it's kind of a mindfulness of awareness of reality. I'm sure it's probably in the fourth category, mindfulness of phenomena. That you can remember that aspect of reality. Yes. But going back to the mundane topic of mindfulness of the body, so mostly we just talked about the breath, but in the traditional teachings, there are all these body parts that we're supposed to look at, the skin and the bones and the phlegm and the bile and everything, going all the way, to all aspects of our body, which is helpful to deconstruct the solid appearance of this body. This body is composed of many parts, and you can go all the way down to the molecules and atoms, and the blood that's flowing through and the nerve impulses um, and then we have experiences of pain. I mean, those are that gets into feeling. Yeah. So, um, but it comes from the body. So, when we feel like our neck or our back has got a backache, because we slept wrong or something, I mean, that's the body. And but if we look at that closely, what is that pain? What is that muscle? It's we have this habitual karmic impression of what it is, it's like this very solid problem, but if we look at it really closely, it's just like this energy vibration really quickly, and um, yeah, I think somewhere I reading about the atomic structure of things, like our body is mostly empty space. It's got some atoms that have a nucleus, and then the electrons are spinning around way out here, but most of it's all empty space, and it's just interesting how we grasp at this very solid body, but it's mostly empty space. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sometimes I try to touch my hand on the ground. And I don't put my hand like this, and one on the ground and one like this. So if my mind is stopping, so I back to my hand and say, "I'm touching." And so it's helpful. So that's what during meditation. Yeah.
Lana was just saying about touching her hand to the ground during meditation as kind of a reminder of being present and minimizing distraction, and in a similar way, when we do walking meditation, you can put all your awareness on your feet touching the earth, just noticing you're lifting one foot and um, you're setting. What does that feel like from moment to moment? So, yes. Um, Seems like I had a lot more to say, but how am I gonna fill the time up? There's 30 minutes. Take a walk. Well, yeah, actually, why don't we, Sherry, we just had a suggestion to do walking meditation. I think that's a great idea. Why don't we just take, I'm gonna say 12 minutes, because 10 minutes seems too short. It takes a minute to get, so find a place in your environment. that's where you can do a little walking meditation, preferably at least 20 paces long. You could walk in here or out in the porch or out in front, and just slowly be mindful of your body, and your mind as you walk. Okay, I'll keep the instructions simple. I was kind of overwhelmed slightly by the diverse sensory experiences. Like first the sun was hitting really strong, and then I walked into the shade and trying to find my balance. It's like we're not used to walking slow. It's sort of like whoa. and yeah, I mean, and I just noticed how quickly the mind moves. I was thinking, I'm always out. Okay, I walk to that same spot in the corner of the house, and I'm sort of aware of, okay, that's my house. That's a big house. So much work to have a house. And sell the house, but I've got to rent it. I can't sell the house right now. What if so the mind's just kind of spinning out on that, and then, okay, breathe, feel your feet, present moment. And then I started thinking about retreat, doing retreat next May. I'm planning to do a retreat. And I wonder if they'll have pots and pans to cook on in the cabin. And, should I take this supply and that supply and walking? And then I started thinking about the latest interaction I had with Pema, my daughter. And why didn't she text me back? I texted her yesterday 2 times. No reply. What's going on? Was there something in our last interaction, walking, and just kind of, but yeah, it's complicated 21st century life. And even just walking 10 minutes is powerful. And not just the mental thoughts about past and future and family, but emotions, kind of feeling some different emotions coming through of the futility of samsara, for example. Just like, oh, it's so such a prison. Like here I am, I'm thinking about all these different things. I can't control my mind. And but what else is there to do but to try to uh, get out of samsara and become a Buddha? But so, anyways, yeah, it's uh, it'll be okay. Even retreat, because so I made this decision to go on a month-long retreat, and there's a little bit of a trepidation, fear of like, oh, what's going to happen in my mind during that time? I'm going to have to like look at all the garbage and my inability to control the mind. It's like, okay, yeah, nothing's new there. That's how it is on every retreat when you go on retreat initially. Um, so yeah, walking, meditation, being mindful of the body. I mean, it's the practice we do. Um, uh, it's not easy to confront the garbage in your mind, but I know from experience that if you do it, you can go to a different level of awareness and start to realize the real possibility of liberation and enlightenment. It's we have that basic nature. And it's already here in unmanifest reality. We just have to keep working on letting go of bad habits of body, speech, and mind. Be patient. Yeah, patience is a virtue. So, I'm not 100% sure. So the question was, what's the connection between the four foundations of mindfulness and the Four Noble Truths? And on you can talk about it on a few different associations come to mind. The Four Noble Truths is the um, second phase of the lamrim, or the second level of motivation, wanting to get out of samsara. And so in order to get out of samsara, we have to understand Four Noble Truths. And in order to penetrate the meaning of the Four Noble Truths, we have to practice four foundations of mindfulness, and directly see how the body and the mind are impermanent. Well, I mean, not the mind itself isn't impermanent. The mental continuum is permanent, but the mind itself is composed of mind moments, which are impermanent. And it's dissatisfactory. We're constantly having to take care of this body that's like a magnet for suffering and pain. And when you're practicing mindfulness of the body, you become more aware of that. Yeah, I mean, and just practicing mindfulness in general, helps us to move closer to an awareness of emptiness, because we start to see how insubstantial everything is, our body, our thoughts. That's kind of like, yeah, what I'm thinking. The connection between the Four Noble Truths and the four foundations. But I'm sure I'm missing something. Rinpoche's mind is
But that's
felt. Yeah, I just remember being, well, people who've worked in hospitals may appreciate this. I had some experiences in hospitals as a patient, and I ended up being a little bit almost afraid of my own body, like not. It's like, why does disease happen? Like when I was 16, I had to deal with this kind of more problematic disease for a while associated with my blood, and the doctors didn't really have any answers, and I kind of looked at my body as like this black box of mystery, and capable of causing a lot of suffering. And in a way, I was onto something. But when I started to explore Chinese medicine, and specifically the first acupuncture treatment I got, I started feeling like energy in my body, and I realized, oh, wow, my mind can be aware of parts of my body below the surface, like like I can actually be aware of organs. Like that wasn't a concept that I had growing up, you know, that you can be aware of the inside of your body. And I mean it's kind of obvious, but now um so where am I going with this? You know, it's like um on an energetic level, things aren't so solid, and you can start to, you know, by observing the body, you start to realize how um, insubstantial it is. It's not as solid as we think it is. It's like um, I mean, as one of my colleagues pointed out once, you know, the body is basically a hollow feeding tube with, you know, basically an opening on both ends, and you know, so it's hollow. Wow, that's an interesting. But you know, even you know, we've got pores that we can't see, and um, sweat, and um, you know, all these different aspects of the body. When we really pay attention to them, we come closer to the true nature of the body. That's probably a good place to stop.